Good morning everyone. My name is Utsav Gautam. I have secured All India 33 rank in Civil Service Examination 2017 and this was my fourth attempt, and I am an engineer by education and by profession. I did my BTech in electrical engineering from IIT Patna. Then I did job in Indian Oil Corporation for 10 months. As civil service was there in my back of my mind during my schooling as well as during graduation, I resigned from my job and I start preparing for civil service examination solely on self-study basis in my home. And this journey has been very much interesting, challenging, as well as a very much learning experience for me. And my father passed away in 2016, 2 months before my mains examination. And this year during mains examination, just before 5 days, my grandmother passed away. And but I always kept me myself motivated and strong from within self, primarily because of the support that I got from my family and from my friends. And there is a African proverb in which I strongly believe, which goes like this: like if enemy outside can do us no harm, if there is no enemy within. So I always try to make sure that if I am very much strong from my inside, if I am devoid of any negative attitude or negative feeling, so if there are any negative circumstances or any position that cannot prevent me from reaching my goal. So this has been in general my approach, and I chose civil service as a career option because I feel it is very great platform for bringing some positive change in the society. And the preparation itself has been a very learning experience. It lead to development of many positive traits which I feel was not earlier when I started the preparation. So I think apart from the destination that we try to reach, that is of a civil servant, I think the journey also matters most, and that leads to development of character. And that is why I feel the journey, despite of many challenges or hurdles, should be enjoyed and should be used as a learning experience, which will be useful and beneficial in the later life. During the course of my preparation for the examination, I've been there in my home only, and I have not taken any formal guidance from any coaching. So all throughout my journey, it has been a product of self-study and self-assessment, aided by some friends and some well-wishers. So I always try to make an effort that the self-study which I am doing should be as much efficient and productive as possible. For that, I used to keep in mind some of the points which I used to make sure that I fulfill those points. First of all, I used to always make sure that the preparation that I am doing is in sync and is in accordance with the trend in the examination, the papers that the UPSC is putting for the students. And I used to regularly look at the papers, be it prelims examination or the mains examination, and I used to do my self-study based on them. And when I used to read a topic, I always used to see the questions that have come in the mains examination as well as in the prelims, so that I make sure that the study that I've done for a particular topic is in the right direction. And after completing a topic, I used to write for mains examination, I used to write the questions for each topic in time-bound manner. Initially, when I started the answer writing, I used to write answer for around 12 minutes for each question, sometimes even 13 to 14 minutes. In general examination, there are around 20 questions, and the examination period is 3 hours, so it roughly amounts to 9 minutes per question. So as a practice strategy, I used to devote 12 minutes, and after subsequent writing, I have started decreasing the time, which reduced to 11 minutes, then 10 minutes, and then I used to write questions for 5 questions in a slot and 6 questions in a slot for 1 hour. Then I used to evaluate them. I used to give to my friend, and I used to read the question again and see if I have fulfilled the need that is being put forward by the question, the motivation of the question. This has been broadly my strategy for the mains examination. For the prelims examination, since prelims is more about answering the questions and less about the raw knowledge that a person has, so my focus has been to increase efficiency and to be very cautious whether to attempt or leave a question. And apart from this, I used to practice for the prelims examination for developing a habit that how to leave a question or how to reduce the options that are given in a questions. Many times it is being seen that we do not know all the 4 options of a question in a prelims examination. So by making an educated guess or by doing some analysis, we tend to reduce the option to 2, and then we proceed further. So I have specially worked in that direction so that I can reduce the options and try to improvise on the questions even in which I have relatively less knowledge. Regarding the essay writing has been a weak point for me in my especially the first 2 attempts. So I made an habit that I should be writing two essays, or if not 2, 1 essay per week, and at any cost, whether I'm busy with my mathematics since it was my optional, or with the GS examination. So I always made an effort that I will be writing 1 essay test for 3 hours in exam bound condition, and I'll get evaluated by my friends. And I also try to write on the topic which were there in the previous UPSC papers. And in general, UPSC essay paper has 2 categories of essay. One is more kind of philosophical, they have more philosophical touch, and other is the more kind of the current affairs or analysis of any situation. So I used to work in both the direction, and since the philosophical part was my weakness in the initial days, I used to write more on the philosophical parts. And the one thing which I made sure that I will be writing essay in the examination which on the topics in which I am very much comfortable, and not on the topics which are more rare. So just to make sure that I do not get wrong in any of the essay, because there are only 2 essays, and if one goes into the wrong direction in one of the essay, so that leads to a very low marks in the essay paper. And regarding the preparation for the general studies paper, I always made sure that the amount of material that I'm reading is very much limited. And in my first 2 attempts, I used to read a lot, and by covering each and every material that is available on the online sources as well as in the market. But then I realized that this will be counterproductive, and this will lead to a very less revision. So I focused, in the subsequent attempts, I made an effort that I will be reading less sources and I will focus on more answer writing. And this has been an approach in general for the general studies. Preparing for civil service examination has been a very long journey for me. It took 4 years for me to qualify, and in the period of the course of preparation, I have felt many times that whether the things that I am doing are there in the right direction or not, or whether I am good enough to qualify for the examination. And apart from this, my father passed away in 2016, just 2 months before my mains examination. And this year also my grandmother passed away just 5 days before my mains examination. So keeping myself motivated and keeping myself in a emotional position that I will be working in the right direction and not feeling demotivated because of the negative result that I got in the initial attempts, as well as the conditions, the prevailing conditions that were there in my environment, in my home. I always try to keep myself motivated, and I always used to believe that if I work hard if I work hard in a right direction, I will always succeed. And particularly when I did not get qualified in the 2016 attempt, and the final result came, I think, on the 30th of May, and the June was and in the after 18 days there was mains examination. I was very much sad by the fact that I didn't make into the final list, and I'll like to share my what I did after that. And I have been a keen watcher of cricket matches as well as movies. So there was a movie of in the memory of the previous Indian captain Shri Mahendra Singh Dhoni. So in that MS Dhoni movie, there was a scene in which the young MS, he did not get qualified in the under 19 cricket team, and he goes to his friend's shop, and the friends present there, they were looking at him and feeling how to tell him. They were very much puzzled and bewildered how to tell MS that he hasn't qualified for the under 19 World Cup. So he goes and he says that he knows that he has not made up in the list, and he says that by playing this tournament he has realized that this will not suffice. He has to work hard, and because of this, that day in which he didn't get selected is very much that day is very special, and he threw a party to his friends just to make sure that he did not forget that day, and that day will make him realize that he has to work hard more and more. So in my last attempt, that all the Hindi dialogue of that movie, it used to run into my mind every time I used to feel low, and I have watched that video maybe 100 or 200 times every time I used to feel low, and I used to keep myself very much motivated because of that video. Regarding the mistakes in the civil service examination preparation, keeping mistakes as minimal as possible is very much necessary, because every mistake that a person do has a potential to make that attempt go waste. And this has been with me as well. After I wrote 2014 mains examination, after I returned back to my home in Agra, I started reading second ARC and Panchi Commission report for around 4 months, and I read all the topics. But then I realized after 4 months that this is the time that I have devoted for that reports was against the cost benefit ratio, and I didn't do any uncertain for that. So I realized that everything that I'm going to do in future at that point of time, I'll ensure that it has good cost to benefit ratio, and I'll do some introspection before devising any strategy. And for that, I used to make sure that I do not lie to myself. If I realize that I am weak in essay, then I'll practice more in essay rather than generating a feeling of procrastination and tend to postpone the things that I'll do in after some amount of time or some point of time. So that I always made sure that I'll be very honest with myself. I'll do neutral evaluation whether I'm good in a topic or not, and I'll devise my preparation as well as my strategy according to my strengths and weaknesses. And for that, I especially focused on GS ethics paper, and as well as in the essay paper, and I got low marks in mathematics paper 2 as well. So I focused a lot that I should not get low marks, and I'll rectify the mistakes that I have done in the previous attempts. So evaluating and introspecting oneself is very much necessary for doing the desired course correction, and it becomes more important when one is doing self-study, because there is no external factor or person to guide you at that point of time. So introspection, I think, is the key, and if it is neutral, I think that will be the best thing that can happen to aspirant of UPSC. Regarding covering the syllabus as well as making notes, the syllabus of the general studies in the prelims as well as in the mains is a bit vast, and very focused approach is needed. First of all, I made sure that I will read at least something about each and every topic that is there in the syllabus of UPSC, be it prelims, be it mains. And I used to read only from one sources, or in some cases from two sources, because what I've realized is reading is necessary for covering each topic, but remembering also is more important. So if I will read from multiple sources, then the likability that I will be remembering all the sources will reduce a lot. And even after that, questions are so vast and they are so diverse from various sources that one cannot guarantee that even after reading all the stuff they will be able to answer all the questions. So I focused more on clearing the basics and then generating an ability that I will be able to handle the questions in the questions in which I know something. In some questions, students or for me in the examination, I have not been able to guess either the motivation or anything about the questions. So, but apart from the questions, in general, most of the questions, a serious candidate has some fair idea what is this question asking about. So, handling those kind of questions is very necessary, especially in mains examination. So, I used to read only one or two sources, and I used to revise more and more. Sometimes there are some topics in which a student doesn't feel that much comfortable or confident, and in some topics a student is very much comfortable. For example, for the prelims examination, polity is a thing which is very much conceptual, and if one read that polity Lakshmikant book once or twice, he or she will have fair understanding of the Indian polity. On the other hand, culture is very much it's very much diverse, it is very much large, and there are multiple sources. And even after reading the culture, there is the likability that one will forget the names and the jargons that are there in culture. So my approach was that for the parts which are relatively tougher to me, I'll revise them more. I'll revise them before the examination twice or thrice. For polity, if I'll have a schedule of revision like 7 days before examination or 5 days before examination. But for culture, I'll have revision schedule of 2 days before the D-Day, 7 days before the D-Day, 15 days before the D-Day, so that whatever I have read in the culture or any different difficult topic, I will be able to revise and recall in the examination, because that is the ultimate thing that matters in the examination. And regarding making notes, I always the method of making notes has totally been dependent and motivated by the UPSC papers. If we see the UPSC mains examinations paper, the question is not direct, and with the current affairs, any current affairs happening, they usually have used that current affairs issue to derive the motivation for the question. So rather than reading about ball by ball commentary of a particular news item, I used to focus more on the motivation and the questions that could be generated because of that issue. That has been my approach. I used to make notes on the Microsoft OneNote, because it is very easy to edit, and I sincerely thanks Shri Gaurav Agarwal, the All India Rank 1 for 2013 examination, because he in his blog has suggested to the aspirants that OneNote is a very good platform, and it will be more beneficial when compared to the written notes. So my approach has been to make OneNotes and in that I used to divide the topics. For example, in polity, issues related to center, issues related to states. Then in polity, the judgments of Supreme Court, the other important judgment of High Court, the other constitutional issues such as the discussion regarding the speaker, the discussion regarding the ordinance route, discussion regarding the role of governor in the state legislative assembly, or in the calling of or disqualification of members by the speaker of state legislative assembly. So I used to make notes. I used to write recommendations from previous reports regarding this, and for the economy, I used to focus more on the bigger conceptual issues rather than studying smaller issues which are a bit more technical and specific, because nowadays if we see the UPSC mains examination papers have become more general, and one has to master the art of writing specific stuff in the general questions, because that will separate us a sincere candidate from a non-sincere one. So this habit will come when we'll focus and when we'll make notes in that direction. So this has been my approach for notes making. And for my optional notes making, I used to write down the formulas and the various tricks and the special caution that I have to take for solving different kinds of question. And I used to revise a lot before the examination, and even before 1 month of mains examination, I used to revise every twice or thrice day. Apart from this, I have focused a lot on understanding the tail end of words, if I may call so, such as analyze, critically analyze, comment, critically comment, discuss, evaluate, critically evaluate, and how I will structure my answer in accordance with the word that is given in the question. And I used to revise, I used to make before around 15 days of the mains examination, I used to make sure that I have some guidelines in my mind that if this kind of word will come, I will approach question in this way. In sociology question, I have to include these dimension. If a question in international relation will come, then I have to include various dimensions such as energy, security, piracy, etc. So for every topic, I have had a brief general outline that that I'll try to implement in the examination if it is possible. So because of that, in this year I wrote the answer which were relatively much more structured and as compared to my previous attempts. So this I think is very much needed, and this if we write in a very structured manner in the mains examination, that makes our answer more special or very different from the general answers. So I think this thing needs to be focused more. Regarding the option paper, my optional has been mathematics throughout my 4 attempts, and I scored 238 in the first attempt in mathematics, 195 in second attempt, and 288 in the third attempt. This time marks has not yet come, but I guess my marks should be in the range of around 320 plus. So I always stick to my optional despite not getting good marks in the first 2 attempts, and I used to make sure that I read my optional very sincerely. One thing which I have seen is that some students used to take optional because of the prevailing trend, which I feel is very much it's not good. Firstly, because the sole criteria for choosing an optional should be one comfortable level rather than the prevailing trend. Because for getting good marks in optional, one has to read optional for a year for at least 5 to 6 hours daily. So if one is not comfortable, he or she will feel bored, or he or she will feel not good after some point of time. So likability and some natural skills should be the prerequisite for choosing optional. If one is very good in answer writing, so he or she can choose to opt a humanities optional. On the other hand, if one is very good in analytical skills, or he or she has been good in his or her graduation in science optional, then he or she can take that optional. And the pattern of scaling for the UPSC is such like that. Though full I don't have full clarity, but the thing that has been in the public regarding the scaling method is that UPSC always tries to maintain equality among all the optional, and the students who are in the top notch of every optional, they will get good marks irrespective of the fact that this optional is in more number or this optional is in less number. So this has been UPSC the general motivation of doing scaling. So if one is good in PubAd, and if let's say if he or she is there in top 1% of the PubAd students who have written mains, he or she will get the same marks, almost similar marks as the top 1% of people writing mathematics will do. So marks and the trend that, or the news that I have heard, that this optional has been butchered this year, or this optional has been butchered that year, I think that is not completely true. And the fact also remains that usually we do not know the marks of all the candidates that have written an optional in the mains examination. So the perception that that has been made is because of very small subset, and which leads to a situation many times that student used to, they used to change, and still I have seen a lot of cases that people have changed their optional after writing 2 or 3 attempts. And this, I think, is one of the unfortunate things that can happen in one's preparation, because it leads to wastage of the effort that has been put in the 2-3 years, and again it makes the person start from the square one. So my suggestion will be to choose an optional just on the basis that how much comfortable levelness is there of one. Regarding handling of option, what I did, I used to devote at least half of my time to my optional every day, and before the examination I used to devote more time in the optional, because general study, if concepts are clear and basics are there, questions especially in paper 2 or paper 3 are more kind of generic. So a relative less revision for the sake of reading more mathematics is a good thing. But if I will not revise my formulas or some also tricky questions before the day of examination or before 1 week, so all the hard work that I have done in mathematics will not give the proportionate fruits. So revision more and more has been my approach in my optional, and that I would say goes with other people as well. Revise your optional more and more, because as compared to general studies, competition is more in optional, because the people who have chosen an optional, they are much more comfortable in the respective optional. And if one has to get good marks in optional, one has to get in that very top 1% or top 0.5% of every optional. So that is very much needed. And because of the scaling, if one is getting relatively less marks, so scaling because of the methodology, it reduces marks to a further level, and that's what exactly happened in my 2015 attempt. So optional should be one's forte, and one need to read and devise his or her strategy according to her optional and her strength or weakness in the optional.